All right, we are being live streamed. Good morning.
Yeah. His
So
Zoom
did
is
it
always like you just jump off the cliff.
I know. It'd be nice if they do a little countdown or something. You're like the other program that we use that would give us a 3, 2, 1. Those kind of
Yeah.
nice. So
Yeah, Zoom's now.
anyway, yeah, wow, we're here. Good morning, everyone. Who is out there this morning? We would love for you to say hello and where you live. Where are you? So it is great to. There's Alicia Adams. I wonder who she is. Ha ha ha. And it looks a little bit like, oh, there we go. I thought you were frozen there for a minute, Lisa, but there you are. So what is happening in Las Vegas? Oh my gosh, the water. Did you get affected by that big rain?
Oh, yes. And actually, it decided to show us we have a leak in the roof because that deluge just came down. It must have puddled somewhere. Anyway, so we'll be calling people out to fix whatever leak it was. But yeah, it came down like a torrent.
Yes, what it looked like. I saw some on the news, and I've always known that like everything from the all around town, and Vegas really is a valley. And man, that water rushes down, and the new suburbs have taken that into account. Because you think you don't ever have water, you don't have rain in Vegas, so we can go long time, but sometimes it pours like cats and dogs. And
yeah,
the pictures were awful of people, cars floating and all of that.
Yeah. I had a friend who from her car cam was showing how she got stuck in water on Cheyenne and somewhere down there downtown. I think it was Cheyenne in Las Vegas area.
So anyway, pretty you just don't think about that happening out there. And I guess they're having bad rains and stuff out in LA as well. So thinking about all of y'all that are dealing with that. But we had a nice gentle summer rain this morning. It was actually quite nice. A little bit. Yeah. So we are glad y'all are with us today. We're going to talk about being unforgettable. And some of you who do not have big personalities, who have a little bit softer personalities, might be thinking, I don't want to be out in front. I don't want anybody to notice me. I want to hang in the back. Well, the truth is, if you're working a business, you want people to remember you, right? You want people to remember who you are and what you do. And if you don't do something to give them a little jolt of who you are so they remember you, you're never going to sell anything. You're never going to be successful in your business. So it's important to think. So we're going to talk a little bit this morning about being intentional about being unforgettable. And that it doesn't mean you have to be wild and crazy, but just some way for people to remember you. How does that hit you, Lisa? I noticed you nodding. And
yeah, no, I'm just thinking of what you said, which was you don't have to be crazy to be, unforgettable, but you do need to be intentional. Well, the way that hits me is intentional always means that we're in a, or to me, it means that we're in a, not in a reactive mode, we're in an active mode. In other words, we're acting upon things that are coming to us because we thought about it ahead of time and made a few choices. What about you?
Yeah, and I think that that's very true. Me, most of the time as an adult, I'm not sure, Alicia, that I understand what that means. Being intentional or being unforgettable. I'm not sure. You have to be a little more clear on your verbiage there. Yeah, I think, we think about being intentional with our goals or the things that we want. And, what you think about, you bring about, all of that is being intentional. But I don't think we often think about being intentional as far as how we want people to think about us and how we want people to remember us. So when somebody, we use networking because that's probably the way that most of us think about that. When you're out meeting people, whether it's on Zoom or whether you're out in real life, in-person things, thinking about how you want this meeting to go. How do you want, being intentional about what do you want them to remember about you? What do you want to come away with? you're not going to sell $1,000 your first time you walk in the door. I mean, it's not about going and how much can you sell. So this is going to vary in between kind of a networking talk as well as unforgettable. But what is your intention when you're going in? I normally would make mine in a live situation. And actually I do this on Zoom as well, to connect with 3 people. So it depends on how big your group is, but I know that in a live meeting, I can't really get around to meet and get a card and actually have a decent conversation with everybody in the room. If you've got 20, 30, 40, if you've got more than that, it's even harder. But, if I can come out and know that I've met 3 people that I'd like to get to know better, that is my intention. And of course, I want those 3 people to remember me as well, right? So what is your intention when you first go into it? When you're in your car, before you even go out, this is part of actually what I talk about on when I do my first level of speaking training, is that first intro. And then what do you want when you go in? And then how do you do that? If you stand back and you just wait for people to come to you, that's probably not going to happen unless somebody in the room is like me. Or like Lisa, who's friendly and will go up and say hello to somebody. So you want to be, my first thing is I go in and I look around the room and I notice the people who smile back at me, because I go in smiling. My head is up, I'm smiling. Who am I going to meet today? Who's my next best friend? It's not about who can I sell to or who wants to buy my whatever, who wants my whitening toothpaste, which I don't have, but just using somebody else's. So
Right.
be intentional about what you want to have about that.
Yeah. Well, and one of the tips, I looked up some things about being intentional, and I popped into one that I thought even would be something I probably should work on as myself. And that was stop comparing yourself to others. And it says, basically, this was a quote: compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else, who someone else is today. And I thought that was kind of cool, because I didn't really think about being intentional and how I think about myself compared to other people. I thought that was a great tip for intentionality.
Yeah, I think it is, because we as women in particular, we very often do that. I mean, I see it all the time, how we compare ourselves to other people. And, you're not ever going to, you're never going to measure up to yourself when you do that. Okay. Because you're always, and I love that, compare yourself to who you were yesterday instead of that person today, because they've had their journey. And at this moment in time, that's their best they are at that point. But we haven't reached our best yet. And it's like comparing, we say apples and oranges, but it's like, how about a tomato and something? I mean, sometimes it's so far-fetched, right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, if we're focusing on how we compare to others as we're trying to be intentional, then we're not really putting forth our best self, because we're not even thinking about our best self at that point. What is it that about us that's unforgettable? Or, what are our mannerisms? And if I'm thinking about Susie's looks classy, and, Jane looks amazingly put together in her speeches and all these different things, I'm not focused on myself. I can't make choices to be intentional at that point, because I'm too much focused on them.
Absolutely. And I think too, so we're going back to the word unforgettable. Sometimes, you'll be in a situation and you meet someone and they have just this great spirit, you're just meeting, it's like, oh man, she is so nice. I really like her. This is somebody I want to follow up with. That person is being unforgettable, right? To you, because you're going to remember her. So what is it that you want people to remember about you? Whether it's, and in a networking situation, you'd like them to remember your name how you made them feel. And I think that is really one of the biggest things is I want to leave people feeling better about themselves. If I can make somebody smile, if I can go in and make them feel good about themselves, they're probably going to remember that I made them feel good about themselves, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for a negative thing. It's like, that's how I really want them to feel. So what is it when you're out visiting with people? So whether it's at a networking or whether it's at church or a committee meeting or whatever, if you are, and really the easiest way to do that is to ask them questions and talk to them about who they are, not about, oh, I'm a this and I'm a that, and this is my product, and oh, I'd love to do a demonstration, because you're then talking about you, not
Mhm.
making them feel good, but you're making it all about you. So when you're in situations, if you can help them, show them that you care about them, then they're going to remember that. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And I think that's a crucial one as part of being unforgettable.
Well, one of my best friends from middle school and high school, it was high school. When we got back together, I think we were in our 40s at the time. I said, we were talking and she says, I just remember how we met. And I'm thinking, I do not remember how we met. And it goes to show you that, and she told me what I did that made it so that she could remember that situation. And I don't even remember doing what she said, which was to be extra friendly. Okay. But if you can make an impression on somebody that lasts that long, because you were kind, or because of something else that you do well, like Kathy is, I'm always amazed at the way she does networking, where she's greets somebody that she doesn't know and then she introduces them to somebody that would benefit them. What a wonderful way to go away being intentional and unforgettable. So there's just so many things that you can do. If it's not your comfort zone, maybe your comfort zone isn't that, but it's, making tables look great. But all these different things, a talent is a talent. And just as you're doing them, be yourself. So.
Absolutely. And again, it goes like, get rid of the comparison. How you greet people is different than other people. How you be, and we talked in the last few weeks, I don't remember when, about being authentic. It kind of comes back to that too. Be you every day. Just be the best you can be today. You don't need to worry about being Susie or Mary, just like Lisa was talking about. Just be your best you. And when you go and just try to, I think, make a positive difference in the world wherever we are. And I truly believe that is what all of you want. Those of you who watch the show, y'all are the prime. Y'all are the VIPs. You're the ones that want to make a difference in the world. You really care about people. And you use the word kind, Lisa. And I think, that is a big deal. If you can be kind and respectful to other people, there's so little of that in the world right now that is going to really stand out. People will notice how you treat others. I think all of us have had that happen when you're in a restaurant and somebody at another table, because I know it wouldn't be your table, but somebody at another table just yells at or berates the server and just says, just snaps at him. And boy, it just makes me feel so bad for that person. Whereas a little bit of kindness, oh my goodness, you get much further. It's just, life is easier when you're kind to other people, when you just show love and respect.
Well, and one of the things that I've been working on for my own self in terms of intentional, and maybe our audience can tell us what they've been working on that works for them. But I have attention deficit disorder. So while you're talking to me in a networking meeting, there's a lot of squirrels behind you. And I can literally get lost in the conversation very quickly, not intentionally though. So one of the things that I've worked on in networking meetings, because people start to look at you like, are you listening to me? Which is rude if I'm not. And yet it's not that I'm doing it on purpose.
Right.
So I work really hard now to start paying attention. So I made a game of it myself that I have to remember like 3 things they said during the conversation so that I can have kind of a treasure hunt during our conversation to keep my mind on them. I know that sounds really silly, but that's like I've recognized my weakness and I'm trying to work on it. And trust me, there's been many a meeting where it's like not been successful, but I'm still working on it. So you have to give yourself a little leeway to be intentional.
I love that example. I think sometimes we get to thinking about what am I going to say next, that we're not paying attention to what the person is actually saying to us. So what I hear you saying, which I think is a great idea, is you're listening to have some way to respond back. So you're paying it, you really are focusing and paying attention to what they're saying so that you can talk about you. What you're doing is a really good way of doing that, really paying attention so you can be responsive to what they're saying. And I think sometimes in sales, if you're going to meet, going to networking, ultimately you're hoping to build your business. Let's be real. If you're going to networking, the bottom line is at some point you would like to be building your business. That's great. Everybody, there's so many great services and products out there. But it can't be, I am not going to follow up with someone who it's all about them and they're trying to sell me on the first appointment, on the very first thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, don't try to sell me. If you have something I need or want, then I will probably purchase it if I feel like that's something that can benefit me. But don't try to sell me. Instead, let me know that you really care. And does your product really work for me? Is that something I really need? Or are you just trying to sell me because you've got a quota you want to meet by the end of the month? You got to get a little specific, with yourself. And so in looking at who you are when you go into these type of situations, and I'm going to put a little plug in here. How you say, so if you're intentional when you first walk in the meeting that you're going to meet 3 people that you want to follow up with and make that connection. Okay. Then the time's going to come in your meeting that you're going to get to stand up in most cases, or however they do it at your meeting, but stand up and give what we call your elevator speech. Give your 1 minute, whatever that's called. Sometimes it's 30 seconds. And I'm telling you, you can be unforgettable in that first one. If you're just like everybody else, they're not going to remember you. Hi, I'm Susie Q, and I sell such and such, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and I know you're going to love it. Let's have coffee. Why would you remember that person? But if they say something, and this is something that I do teach. So like I said, I'm giving a little plug. That is something I teach because I really want every one of y'all to have such a powerful 1 minute that everybody remembers you, that you are unforgettable and you have more one-on-one appointments than you can even do. Okay, that's my goal for you is I want you to have so many appointments that you can hardly keep them scheduled in your calendar. Doesn't that sound great?
Kathy says to keep real eye contact. Yes, that sounds wonderful. And that she feels the song coming on.
Yeah, well, there is one of those songs, and that is how I usually start my one minute when I'm teaching that class. But to be unforgettable, so being intentional is the first step of really wanting to do that. Having a really powerful, straightforward, honest, and authentic 1 minute or elevator speech, however you want to call it, it's very important too. And then I would also say leave yourself time at the end. This is getting into, so we're having multiple conversations today because it's about networking, it's about being unforgettable, all of these things. But it matters whether you're in a business situation or not. If you just run in at the last minute and you're on your phone and you sit down, and then at the very end, you rush right out, then why did you even go? Why did you even go if you don't leave yourself that time to be unforgettable, to go up to someone and even say to them, oh my gosh, your 1 minute was so amazing. I just love that. I'd love to hook up and have coffee with you. Or maybe it's a situation where they tell a story, somebody shares something. Leave yourself a little leeway on both sides so that at the end you can hang around a little bit, go up and share some thoughts with someone, give somebody a compliment. It's like, all morning I was watching you and you just smiled and were so interactive. I just wanted to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Something that's really real that they did. And that's part of, again, that is all being intentional. It's being intentional to meet and connect with people. And then, give yourself a chance at the end to follow through. Doesn't mean you have to stand there and have a 15-minute conversation, but you can take 1 minute, take another 2 minutes, and just, be friendly, be kind, be respectful, and compliment. Compliments go a long way.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there, because like one of the things I love to do with networking events, I love to come just a little bit early and help them with whatever they need to get the event going. And that's a perfect way for me to dive in and get to know who's organizing things. Because usually the person who's organizing the event knows a lot of people, and she's happy to share and help me get in. And plus, when you're helping, people are like, hey, I remember that person helped me without even being asked. And so besides, it's something I like to do. Just fun.
And that is perfect, Lisa. And I think actually Kathy talks about that in one of her books. I'm not sure, Kathy, if it's your first or your second on networking, is that when you go early and you help, it does. And even volunteering, do you need help? I could sit, I'd be happy to sit at the registration table, because then guess what? You get to meet everybody. I mean, that's a great thing. And every organizer, me included, I always need help. I mean, anytime somebody volunteers, and Lisa has been a godsend, in our Fun Fearless in Vegas, she's just been amazing. It's like, we're this team, and she does greet people when they come in. And that thing that Kathy does, like taking someone and saying, oh my gosh, you need to connect with Susie Q. So when you can take those various steps, what is that? You're being friendly, you're being kind, you're making them feel better, especially if it's somebody who's never been before. That is a scary feeling, and even I, who am a pretty outgoing person, there are situations that I go into that I always appreciate it if somebody comes in. Because when I go into unless it's a networking meeting, if it's a networking meeting, I'm very intentional. I know exactly what I'm doing. I go in, like I said, I look for the smiles and I go meet people, because I know it's easier for me than some that are a little more shy or reserved. But there are times when I go into other kind of meetings or conferences and things where I go in actually to be the one standing back and wanting to observe. I really love observing. It's really fun. So when somebody then comes up to me and introduces themselves and says, oh, you've got to meet so-and-so, I really appreciate that. I think that's really a nice thing to do. And I really remember them for doing that. So if you're in a situation where you know everybody and you see new people come in, take that opportunity to make them feel comfortable, and then introduce them to somebody that lives in the same area of town, or somebody that's in a similar business, or whatever that might be. Just if you're really looking for the positive and you're really looking at how you can serve them, how you can help them feel more comfortable, again, then that takes all the pressure off of you, because you're concerned about
them. Yeah, definitely. Well, and time management is part of being intentional. If you're, like I said, if you're always in a reactive mode in your schedule, oh yeah, I got to get to the meeting. Oh yeah, I've got to go to this. And oh yeah, now I got to get here. If you're always in that reactive mode, you're not able to do your best self, because it's like, to me, it's like tripping forward through your life. So
that's a good way of putting it. And our culture is such that it's like a badge of honor. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy.
Mm-hmm. The busy badge.
Let's quit saying that. We're all going to make time for the things that we really want to do. We're going to set our priorities and do those things. So if you've already set it as a priority that you want to go to this particular gathering, then be there, be all in, be intentional, and really it'll increase your enjoyment as well as, you know, it'll increase your connections as well. And if all you're going to do is run in and run out and say, oh, if it's just a check off on your list, then really look at that. Why are you going? If you're just checking it off to check off on your list, then what's the point? You know, let's be, again, I do love the word intentional. It's just one of those great words. So,
well, a lot of people, I don't think they realize that they're in a way being intentional when they don't make those decisions. It's intentional in a way that's negative though. Because I know somebody who's late all the time, and I've watched when I've been over and I've seen the fact that they'll just sit down until it's almost too late doing something else and then get up and go, oh, I'm always late to something. Well, yeah, I mean, I know that we get into bad habits and things like that, but the situation is that when we make choices, we make a choice to go one direction or another. And if we're not making choices, then we've made a choice.
right. Yeah, even not making a choice is actually making a choice.
Yeah.
So we
Because
think
a lot of
sometimes
people blame being late on just their, oh, I'm just always late. That's just the way it is. No, it's still a choice too.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I think I've told this story before, but comes to my mind every time we have this kind of a conversation. I used to be one of those people, Lisa. I used to be late. I don't know why. I just always was. I mean, I didn't think it was any big deal. And if I walked in 5 minutes late, what was the big deal, right? That's how I looked at it until my national sales director and Mary Kay gave a little talk about that. And she says, if you're one of these people that's always late, you are being so rude. And I'm thinking, I'm not being rude. That's what I'm thinking. And she says, when you're late, you're telling other people that you're more important than they are. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think I'm more important than somebody else. But she continued to talk about it for a little bit. And I realized it was one of those ahas, like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. By being late, then I'm infringing on their time. I'm being interrupted. And I would slip in. But I never thought of it, that it was actually putting myself before others by being late like that. Like, so now I'm early.
Well, and it's easy for, like, I grew up with a dad that was like, there was 15 minutes before or there was late. I mean, he didn't believe in coming in at the same time. So, I mean, I grew up with a culture of being on time. And so that helps me. And I know that other people were born with a culture of it's okay not to be on time. In fact, that, like, you know, you prefer to be 5-10 minutes late. So it's, you know, I'm not judging your situation, but what I am saying is if you want to have a more intentional time at events, it does help to be planned and to get there. Getting there late does put a pressure on, even on yourself, to not have as good a time.
Because that feeling, I think sometimes of feeling like you say, tripping forward, of feeling like you're always trying to catch up. You know, so if you start out late, then you're kind of always feeling like you're running behind, as opposed to that kind of just being there and taking in the moments, enjoying the time that we are together, whatever that is. So I think that is important. Tripping forward. There you go, Kathy.
Yeah.
All right.
And we are at the top of our hour too.
Huh?
I said, and we are at the top of our hour.
I know we are. I was like, okay. So Alicia, thank you for being here. Miss Kathy, of course, thank you for being here. I don't know if anybody else is out there. If you are watching later, then put a little comment in, and when I go back, I'll totally check it out and comment back to you. So we appreciate so much you being here. Any last thoughts, Lisa, before we close her up?
Not just a little bit back to the don't compare yourself with others. And I think that just focus on yourself and how you can improve. Look at what you might, like with my attention deficit issue, it took me a while to actually come to the conclusion that I was making people feel uncomfortable in a conversation because I was jetting off to a different focus, and they thought I was not paying attention to them. And so, look at the different things that you might could do in your own routine and how you react to people to help yourself rather than worrying about comparing yourself to others. You don't have to be a super person, somebody else super person. You are already super.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that made Mary Kay unforgettable is that almost so many interviews with her. And one of the things people would say is that whenever they were in her presence, she made them feel like they were the only person in the room. And I know for a fact, because there were always hundreds of us, I did get to meet her on a couple of occasions or get to see her. And when you went up to her, she would take your hand in her hands and she would look directly in your eyes and she would ask you a question. So whatever, I can't even remember the question, but like, tell me a little bit about you. But there's always people that want her attention, right? And all around here. And she just looked in your eye and you felt like you're the only person in the room.
That's all.
What about being intentional about that?
Yeah.
When you go into things? That'd be awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right, my friends. Love you guys. Thank y'all so much for being here. Remember that life is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. So choose to be intentional in some way so that it makes you unforgettable. All right. Love you guys. Bye now.